Factorio is a pretty complex game. Today I decided to install a bunch of random mods. With those came a bunch of new recipes, new smelters, turrets, and of course, instruments of war. On top of that, there's a few more biters than usual. Because I added so many military things, I decided it would only be appropriate if we had to destroy. But without further ado, here's how 50 days of Factorio on maximum population went. On the first day, I land on planet Navi with no idea of what I'm doing. I immediately opened the research menu to see that there's a few new research recipes. I don't let this deter me though. I immediately began scavenging my ship for any usable materials. Since I didn't know what most of these things did, I decided to just research what I did know. That being gun turrets. They were going to come in handy. Through sheer power of will, I gave myself an NPC controller. This item is important because it's how we're going to be able to lead our armies. Alright, now we have a drill and a furnace. That's our entire factory. Thanks for watching. Okay, the video isn't over, but you're going to notice something about the furnace. It's not doing anything. Yeah, for some reason, the furnaces in this mod require you to choose the product. I then went and made one copper drill. This is about as much copper as you're going to need throughout the entire game. And by the end of the first day, I had a second drill. On the second day, I started focusing on making red science. I had to get defenses up as soon as possible. As you can see, I'm already making labs. I'm going to quickly set up a tiny power plant just to start research. Now that we have that working, I can start focusing on some other things. Of course, I increase my iron production. In the early game, you always need more iron. Some mod I have installed adds this tiny little dinky turret. I don't even know if it's good, but for the time being, it'll hold the line. I started researching automation, and while that was going, I started to place down power poles around the base. Right now, things are going great, but soon, this will change. Finally, I have some electric mining drills. This means I should probably get to work on making an actual furnace stack. This furnace stack is actually temporary and only vaguely more efficient than the one I had before. And that's because I want to use these. These are apparently more efficient than the regular furnaces, so I thought I should give them a try. But not before automating at least some basic ammunition production. I'm gonna be using a lot of bullets throughout this run, so I better get started on making some. Did I mention bricks? I should probably inform you that we're gonna need a lot of bricks. Also, it's day 4. We start off day 4 by dropping off some more science packs. After all, this research isn't gonna just materialize into my hands. When I installed a mod that increases the turret range, I didn't expect it to turn them into intercontinental ballistic missiles. Great, now that that's done, I can try and figure out how this works. I've never used this mod before, but it looks simple enough. Of course, we start off by making this little heater thing. This seems to be where we get the heat for the furnaces. After quickly disassembling my furnace stack, I hook up the iron over to these new fancy furnaces. Apparently, they don't use fuel. Instead, they use the heat from these big central furnaces. They're really annoying to rotate because there's no indication of which way they're facing. And unfortunately, they need to face the right direction or else you can't get the pipes on them. I feel like this is a very ineffective setup, but for the time being, it'll do the job. Hello again. As it turns out, I forgot to record everything between day 5 and 7. Thankfully, barely anything happened, let alone anything you can consider interesting. We did set up some basic manufacturing of things, but I was having a hard time trying to figure out how I was going to scale my iron production. I'll deal with that when I get there. For the time being, I need a lot more walls. As far as I'm aware, I am completely surrounded. This means my turrets can fire in any direction and they will always hit. This unfortunately also means that I can be attacked from any direction. And by extension, I must defend every direction. I am most certainly not gonna be able to defend everything with this horrible setup I have right now. So I quickly get to work on automating more things and of course, expanding production. As I was increasing our coal production, I got a little bit of a visit from the locals.
Huh?
Due to the expanded turret range mod, I didn't even see them. At least I know where they're gonna be attacking from, so I know which direction I should probably defend first. Since I already had some pretty decent iron production, I decided to step up my copper game. Since I was using so many pipes, I decided to just automate those. I'll admit it took me way too long to do this. No reason to hold on to these burner drills anymore, so let's replace them with some cool electric ones. Now that I've set up this horrible thing, I can start working on automating things that require both copper and iron. Of course, I start off with circuits. These are just circuits I'm gonna have in my inventory, because it's really annoying to craft them every time. He also started with this spaghetti. This base is going to have a lot of spaghetti, so don't expect this to be the last you see. Anyways, I now had a pretty functional mall with all the essentials. Electronic circuits, inserters, belts, gears, and pipes. In other words, I was about to increase my productivity greatly. And I would need it, because soon enough, the locals will really start responding to my presence. And if you haven't been able to tell, I always like to let this song play out before I cut to the next scene, and that's exactly what I'm buying time for right now. As I mentioned, now that I actually have something worth defending, I figured it was time to start setting up defenses. Because of the turret range mod, I can set up these turrets pretty far away from each other and still have guaranteed crossfire. Is it overpowered? Possibly. Am I going to complain? Absolutely not. I noticed my mining drills weren't going at maximum efficiency, so I check out my power poles and it's time to make some more power production, I guess. Thankfully, I still remember the ratios for the most efficient steam generator, so all I had to do was add another boiler and 4 engines. Even though I only had 3 set up. Oh well, I guess I can add an extra one to the other side too. Now that I've essentially doubled my energy production, it should suffice for quite a long time. On day 11, I set up some brick production. I'm gonna need it for all the walls I'll be making. As of right now, I only really need 2 fabricators, so I'll leave it at that. The biters have been pretty relaxed since their last attack, but I won't be letting my guard down. I decide to reinforce pretty much all of this top perimeter here. Remember what I said about spaghetti? I'm pretty sure this counts. This is horribly inefficient for many reasons, but I didn't feel like destroying my current mall setup. So instead I just split off my iron and copper lines into a second main bus. Since my iron smelters were low on heat, I decided to build some more furnaces. Unfortunately, I implemented them in the most cursed way I could think of. I'm gonna be honest, I have no idea what I was thinking with this furnace here. This is possibly the least efficient thing I've seen in my entire life. Anyways, I kept setting up the basic idea for our perimeter here. Eventually, I'll make a full wall around our base, but that's for later. Right now I have more important things to do, like increase our iron production. Because you always need more iron, no matter what you think. Now that our second cursed furnace stack was done, I decided to hook this up to our main belt. Every time I've played Factorio, I found that my main bus was always short on iron no matter what I did. So this time I'll be playing my cards differently. My idea here is to have 2 belts with iron instead of just 1. This way, if one ends up drying out at some point, I can just switch to the other one. Right now, I'm working on walling off the copper and my power plant. Or at least I was until I got distracted and went to automate red science. Looking back on it, I should have probably done this earlier, but I don't really care. What matters is the biters are probably getting angry by now, and soon enough these defenses will be put to the test. As you can see, I set up these defenses just in time. It seems like the biters are starting to come from new angles. My wall production is still pretty slow, so while I wait for more walls to be crafted, I'm setting up some basic automation for things like gears using my main resource bus. Of course, I set up some new research production. I'm going to be needing a lot of red science, and the setup I had before just wasn't gonna cut it. Additionally, I shifted my current walls down quite a lot. I was gonna build my lab setup here, so I wanted to have the defenses ready first. Alright, now we can actually start researching the interesting things, like all of the new turrets and the things we'll use to take back territory from the enemy. I decided that I should probably get those offensive vehicles quite quickly. After all, they'd work as stationary turrets and as a way to push back the biters. As you can see, there's quite a lot of biters already, and one turret is actually having a hard time keeping them away, even if they're not quite evolved. Here you can see me using my new Tesla turret. It's apparently similar to the laser turret, except it uses about 300 times more power. Sounds pretty cool. As you can see, dealing with these central furnaces can be pretty annoying sometimes. But as far as I'm aware, there's no fall off in heat because of these pipes. So as far as I'm concerned, this is very efficient. In case you're wondering what I'm doing here, I'm actually setting up a sort of reserve. Basically, my molten metal turrets are going to use this copper as fuel. Since I'm not gonna be using all the copper I extract anyways, I might as well use some of it for this. This is around the point where it started to dawn on me how bad of an idea it actually was to have 3 belts. If I used to make spaghetti bases before, this is an entirely new level of spaghetti. If we ignore that though, my machines of war have arrived. All they need is some fuel and some ammunition, and I can basically control them from just about anywhere. As I was saying, I can control them from just about anywhere. All I need to do is use that NPC controller I manifested into reality earlier. Also, here's me laying down a bunch of bricks. As to how the Factorio engineer is capable of doing this, I have no idea. I've been cutting out most of the boring things, but at this point I was getting quite a lot of warnings for attacks up top. I didn't realize it at the time, but apparently the BITERS decided to expand. For some reason they felt like stationing themselves even closer to the enemy was a good idea. I was going to teach them that it was in fact a horrible idea. Also, ignore the cursed eldritch spaghetti you are currently witnessing. The longer I work with this main boss, the more aneurysms I think I'm having. Somehow, absolutely nothing works. And before you think it gets any better, it never does. Dante's Spaghetti Inferno keeps growing. If I had to narrate over every single spaghetti section, this video would be about 7 hours long. I'm not going to do that. I'll spare you some of the suffering. This was the exact moment I knew I had to retaliate. Attacking my things is fine, but the moment you start breaking my it's officially gone too far. Right now I still don't quite have the resources needed to push the BITERS out of that area, but very soon I will strike back. At this point I have pretty much everything I need to actually go and attack the BITERS. Of course, my objective now is to create at least a small army. In the meantime, I was still busy working with my absolute spaghetti monster of a factory. Alright, so hopefully you didn't skip over the 47 minutes of me explaining what led us to the war with the BITERS, because we're gonna start our first attack. For this operation, I'll just use 4 chain gunner tanks. They should be able to do the job. If you couldn't tell from the corpses of our enemies, the operation was a massive success. So the first operation was a success, which is great. With just those 4 chain gunners, I was able to take down a good amount of biter nests. This inspired me to go on a second attack campaign, this time attacking the biters who have expanded up north. Over the course of the game, they've pretty much been getting closer and closer to me, which I do not like. So I decided to whip up a few chain gunners to resolve the problems. Overall, the operation was a success. We managed to push back the biters quite a lot. Even though the entire chain gunner squad died, that's a sacrifice I was willing to make. Anyways, the rest of the days were pretty boring, so I'll skip those. This is what 50 days of Factorio... Wait, what? What do you mean? Oh, is that why they were dying so easily? Oh, okay, I get it. So I have to do everything again, right? Oh, okay. Is there no way we can just, like, clickbait the audience and pretend this was actually planned all along? No? Okay, I'll see what I can do. Welcome back to Factorio. Today we're gonna be playing